What are some telltale signs that someone is a functioning alcoholic? Before we start with the first story, please hit subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Story 1. I'm not an alcoholic, but I did make friends with the guy that owned a little package store at the end of my street a few years ago. I stopped in for a bottle of wine most Fridays after work, and he would spend the week picking which ones to offer me when I showed up. We got so friendly that one time I walked out without my debit card. I wasn't paying attention, and we were chatting about something, so I walked out with him still holding it after he swiped it. I didn't realize until the next day that I didn't have it, and I panicked thinking I'd dropped it. On my way home that night, I stopped in to check if maybe by chance I'd left it at the packy, and as soon as I walked in, he shouted, "Oh, there you are." Sometimes being friends with the liquor store owner has its perks. Sometimes. Story 2. Till I was a functioning alcoholic for the past year. I would go to work, pay bills, and be a responsible adult in all things, but after work and days off, I drink. Slam 4 rum and cokes after work to get the buzz that would last until bedtime. On days off, I would start around 2 p.m. and pass out around 10 p.m. I think my anxiety finally worked in my favor, and I convinced myself I was going to die if I didn't stop drinking. Been booze-free for 43 days so far, and the urges are getting fewer now. Story 3. Your hobby is drinking. You are either at work or drinking. Alcohol is how you spend your free time. Or if you have a family, you're working, doing only the required parenting, or drinking. You plan outings, events, your schedule, etc. around when you can get home and drink. My dad was a functioning alcoholic. He was a hard worker, provided for us. We never wanted for anything. And he was there when we needed him, but only when we absolutely needed him. If it was an event or something he didn't have to go to, he didn't go, even if we would have liked for him to. If our mom could handle whatever it was we wanted, he let her. I loved him very much, and he loved me to the moon and back. I know that in my soul. But he was a functioning alcoholic who always had one foot in the house with us and one foot in the garage with his beer. In his mind, this was a step up from how he was raised, and I understand that more as I get older. Story 4. As a functioning alcoholic, I go to work every day, don't drink on the job, but when I'm off work, I'm drinking. Drinking is my hobby and the way I spend my free time. I would get off work, and the moment I clocked out, I was buying a case of beer or running to the liquor store if I was off the next day. If I worked the next day, I would look at the alcohol content of what I was drinking and figure out how much I could drink and be fine for work the following day. It took until I made a doctor visit for something unrelated, and my liver enzyme levels were elevated and beginning to show the start of liver disease that I finally decided to cut back. I didn't stop at first, but instead of getting absolutely sloshed every day, I would stop at drunk. A few years later, I went back to the doctor and my levels were up from what they had been. I decided that day that I was done. I won't say that I've been completely sober since then, but in the past year, I've had 9 drinks total. Story 5. My brother started a successful company in his 20s and basically stopped going to work in his mid-late 30s. He's 40 and have gone downhill. He did 3 months in jail for an extreme DUI recently. I've lost count of how many DUIs he's gotten at this point. Every day he wakes up and just drinks all day, alone, in his huge house. We used to hang out all the time. We would play golf every weekend, but eventually it came to a point where I couldn't book a tee time early enough that he could show up sober enough to swing a golf club as a low single-digit handicap. He was either faced from the late night before or so drunk from drinking that morning that it was pointless. I really miss the amazing brother I used to know, instead of the guy I see a couple of times a month but haven't seen, hardly sober enough to even carry a conversation in years. Story 6. I've met a few functioning addicts in my day, and this part seems to be key. They recognize they are an addict and aren't giving up what fuels their addiction. They also recognize, however, if they completely give in to the addiction, their life as they know it will be over. So to work around this, they essentially become Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They put up walls and walk the straight and narrow when required to do so, but after duties have been attended to, the gloves are off. So as you might guess, they don't like to work extra hours or weekends. That eats into the Mr. Hyde time. Story 7. Well, for me, I'd need to have a drink every morning or I'd be sick. Drinking alone often is another indicator. I was drunk for the vast majority of my undergrad. I remember at one point everyone was lined up to go to a career fair and all dressed up, and I went walking past everyone after having walked a few miles in my PJs to get some. More booze, I also had constant tremors, all the time, even when I'd had a few drinks. It took about 6 months to a year of me not drinking for tremors to stop. From college into my mid-20s, I couldn't hold my hand straight. An alcoholic will try to justify their drinking, always saying it's not that much or downplaying the amount. My friends thought I was going to die early from drinking too much. 6 years sober in a few months, and I'm much better for it. Story 8. Years ago, I worked in a grocery store, and at one point I was assigned to condition shelves, which meant lining up products so the shelves looked fuller, disposing of empty cardboard flats, picking up products customers abandoned, etc. I kept finding empty vodka shooters on the shelves. Mentioned it to the night crew foreman, and he said, "Oh yeah, one of my guys is a drunk, but he busts his ass here every night, so I don't say anything." Story 9. Being a really good liar. Being a functional alcoholic requires an ability to lie and manipulate others into thinking you're okay and you have everything under control. I had a friend who was so clearly an alcoholic, but somehow he made everyone believe he had it under control, despite his concerning behaviors. We never had a serious conversation about getting him help. On the outside, he had a pretty good life. Very well liked socially, always with friends, etc. He ended up taking his life though. To this day, no one knows why. They found him with double the amount of the lethal blood alcohol content. My therapist told me it was likely alcoholism. Maybe the guilt of all the lies? Not being able to stop. I don't know. Story 10. Vodka. Vodka is the end game for an alcoholic. It is by volume the least expensive way to stay inebriated. It's clear so you can put it in water bottles. It has a smell akin to hand sanitizer, so you can act like a germaphobe and apply it constantly. A spritz of cologne and those 5-hour breath mints help, but you need to be wary of sweating it out of your pores, so even between showers, you must take care to wash your face and arms. There comes a time when you can pass a field sobriety test, but not a breathalyzer. Story 11. Yup, vodka was what I ended with. My yard, house and vehicles were littered with shooters. They were the only way I could remain functional. If I got a bottle, I'd drink it all in about 10 minutes if it was a pint. A 750 could last 2 hours maybe. I drove and went to work, went to school, did everything. Always had shooters with me. Then one day I finally got a DUI and almost killed myself hitting a telephone pole at 75. Kept drinking for 6 months after that. Even the day after the DUI, I took my girlfriend's car to go get some things out of my wrecked car, found 3 unopened shooters, and drank them all on my way to the gas station to get more shooters. Then I had to drive 2 hours to work, so I got more shooters for that. Hit the gas station before work and got some more shooters. Hit the gas station again after working a few hours and got more. Then drove home 2 hours and hit the last 2 gas stations for shooters at both. That was the day after my DUI. That was July 8 of last year. I drank heavily until November, and then I ended up in the hospital with blood pressure through the roof on the verge of a heart attack, shaking uncontrollably, puking, and chest pains. It took a couple more weeks until my sister finally flew out to stop me from basically killing myself with it. I quit on December 8 for 22 days. Went on a 9-day bender until January 7 of this year, and that was the day I had my last drink. Ending my 190th day sober tonight feels great, and I have my life back. Very thankful for my sister. Story 12. There's a functional alcoholism specific to the Army in the US, in my experience, and I was no stranger to it when I drank regularly. At the height of it, I would have anything. Either 4 doubles a night on ice, 2 tall bottles of high-impact beer, or half a bottle of wine between 5-10 p.m. I told myself all of the Army lies. I don't have a problem because I don't need to drink, I want to drink. I don't have a problem because I don't drink when I'm deployed. I don't have a problem because I don't come to work. Drunk, I don't have a problem because this wine or beer goes really well with my dinner. I don't have a problem because I still work out twice a day most days. I don't have a problem because I run 4 to 6 miles most days. I don't have a problem because I drink slowly. Over the course of 5 hours, I don't have a problem because most of my peers do this. This really wasn't uncommon for my generation of soldiers. The behavioral health stigma was slowly lifted near the end of my career, but most of us operated on the self-medication wavelength, doing incredible chemical violence to our bodies to cope with anxiety, PTSD, depression, and general heartache. Get up early for PT, slam some coffee and nicotine, spend the day using more caffeine and nicotine, go home, start drinking around dinner because you don't have a problem if you're doing it on your off time, pass out drunk, rinse and repeat. A lot of us would spend our weekends doing physically intense activities like hiking, fun runs, etc., and then spend the late afternoon and evening getting slowly housed. My favorite anecdote for all of this is actually something Tom Waits said: "You don't become a star for the lifestyle. The lifestyle is waiting there when you show up." The lifestyle was definitely waiting for us. It was cultural. Anyway, after my divorce, another standard for many career soldiers, I decided to do the opposite of what seemed normal, and I quit drinking altogether for a long time. I've had a few drinks and beers since then, but becoming someone who drinks rarely rather than regularly has been very rewarding on all levels. Also, therapy is great. If you can manage, go. Story 13. I am a 48-year-old, married father of 2 in the UK here. I gave up drinking last year because it was, one way or the other, going to kill me. The reason I drank, the core unchangeable reason, was to change my mood and emotions, to try and feel better. You can probably imagine how well that worked. If a person is using booze to manage their emotions, then that to me is a sign of dependency. How another person determines that is hard to define, however. Since I gave up alcohol and have used only therapy and medication to manage my negative emotions, it feels like I've been playing life on easy mode. Story 14. They seem to always be drinking. I knew a functioning alcoholic, my uncle. Every time I saw him, he had a beer in his hand. One time I asked him if he was an alcoholic. He said, "Of course not." I asked him if he could stop drinking if he wanted. He said, "Yeah, but why would I stop having fun?" He had no idea what was wrong with that response. He died from cancer that likely stemmed from his drinking and smoking habits. He died at 55, I believe, last year. He was a cool dude though. He could make some good-ass food, but he would always forget the recipe as he was always so drunk, lol. Story 15. I guess it depends how you define alcoholic, but I guess I fall into this category despite the relatively small amount I drink. My life is going well. I have a well-paying job that I'm good at. I'm up at 6:30 every morning taking care of business. The house is clean. I am very hands-on domestically. I cook for the family. And I look after my child constantly. In short, I take good care of my family and we share duties equitably. I don't get drunk except on very rare occasions with friends, and I almost never wake up hungover. But I always have between 2 and 3 beers every night. I usually start with a beer with my dinner, then 1 or 2 on my own after everyone else has gone to bed. Then I go to bed when the last beer is gone. Occasionally I stop this for a few weeks, but I prefer life with it. This has been going on for the last 30+ years. One thing that makes me think that it's more than I just like beer is that I can either skip the beer completely with no problems, or I will have 2 or 3. There is no halfway house. If I have that first sip of the first one, then I will have that second beer. If I have the first and can't have the second or third, I will feel intense disappointment for like an hour. Is it bad that I don't think this is actually that big of a problem? Alright folks, that's a wrap. If you like this, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your those in the comment below.